Hey everybody, thanks for checking out the Awesome Walter YouTube channel. If you like what you see, make sure you subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified when new videos are going up. Hey guys, sorry this is late. I literally just got back from Los Angeles for this film festival that I was out there for. It's been a whirlwind couple days. I finally just got back to watch this. I literally landed, came home, turned this on, and now I'm talking to you guys here. So I apologize again for this being so late, but you know, it's been out for a few days. We're going to go into spoilers about this. Hopefully you guys have seen this by now. This is the third episode of the Are You Afraid of the Dark Revival 2019 here on Nickelodeon. And overall thoughts, I really enjoyed this. By the way, I'm not going to be editing this too much. There's not going to be a lot of pictures or anything like the last time because I really just need to get this out so you guys could see this and we can share our thoughts and talk about it. I did like this. I think the second episode overall was the strongest. This one was a satisfying conclusion for sure. There's a lot of twists and turns that are definitely very tropey, and especially towards the end. And some things don't really make sense when you think about it at all. But for the most part, it was enjoyable. They took way more risks than something like the Goosebumps movie did in terms of trying to be legitimately scary. This episode, you know, we saw these moments in the trailer, but they're talking about, or we see when they're going through like this little lake or moat or whatever, where they have like the ride with the boat going through that we saw in the second episode, I believe. And there's these animatronic zombies that come out of the water, and now they've come to life in this episode, and they take the kids under, and that's pretty spooky. There's a point where they're saying Marco Polo to try and find out where they're at because there's all this fog on top of the water. And right behind the girl, one of the zombies answers Polo and like takes her down. And I was like, oh, that's good. That was legitimately good. I popped for that. There's a moment with the older brother who's the cop of the filmmaker girl. He's driving them to Idaho where the Carnival of Doom has popped up again. It's in Rachel's hometown. So on the pit stop, he goes into the bathroom, and all these scorpions just start coming out of the sink and the urinal and the toilet and all this stuff and start taking over the ground. And then he's missing. She goes in there, his younger sister, and she looks in the mirror, and he's like trapped in the mirror as like the lights are blinking. Well, at first she sees herself, and she's like looking at herself and laughing. Which is effective, and we see him back there, and Mr. Top Hat's behind him kind of holding him. So I thought that was a really cool, kind of spooky, but more just visually interesting moment that I think was executed very, very well, and I was very into like those parts when they came up. They can only go so far with how intense it is. They, you know, like towards the end, we see Mr. Top Hat. My thoughts are going to be all over the place here, so just follow me if you can. Like I said, we're going into spoilers here. So at the end, when Mr. Top Hat dies, he says like, "This is something you're never gonna forget." And I expected him to go full Last Crusade style and you know, somebody help me, and then like age into a skeleton and look, you know, as far as they could push it. But he just got gray hair and then got Thanos and snapped out of existence and turned to ash. I was really hoping they'd go a little bit farther at that, but that was kind of like the big ending moment for the villain and everything. Kind of hoping they do a little bit more of an intense scene at that portion of the story, but still, like how everything wrapped up was pretty decent. Overall I really enjoyed it. The acting, it varies in this. I think that they got a little bit too bogged down in the stereotypes of these characters. Again, the kid who plays Ben in the It movies, he's got a great personality. You could tell because it comes through. He's got great facial expression, really good delivery, but they just give him like these... They make him be funny. We gotta make him be funny. It's just like, we don't need all that. Like I said before, I thought that was a little bit too much. The guy who played Mr. Top Hat is trying as best as he can. And I like the backstory that they give for him. We show, 1944, and we see that he was this carnival runner with ties to his dad, you know, wanting to impress his dad who had passed away. And his dad always loved the carnival, so he wanted to make this carnival. So we see that he kind of made like a deal with the devil, kind of. You know, it's not really gone into too much detail, which is fine. But he gets that scorpion cane, and that's kind of what controls everything, and, you know, it gives him the curse, but also, I guess it's not really even a curse. He doesn't treat it like that. Going from town to town, the kids don't remember what happens, but he could do whatever he wants and, you know, scare or abduct or whatever he was doing. He could do anything he wants basically, and not have any repercussions because nobody remembers it after he leaves that town. The other guy, I can't remember the bald guy's name, but him showing up was kind of out of nowhere. It just seemed very, very forced about this plan that they had. He's like, I have a map, and like puts the map down and like helps the kids out, and then he turns on them. It just didn't, it was like a trap. But I mean, like that guy's huge. All he had to do was grab a couple of them, and it would have got that done much faster. Just kind of a time wasting situation, I thought, with that character. But this is one of the instances, in terms of the backstory of the Carnival of Doom and the Mr. Top Hat character, that we could have expanded on more if this was a legitimate mini-series. This is only 3 episodes. It's not even, they call it a limited series, but it really, like I've talked about before, it feels like a movie. In this one, actually, it felt like we needed a little bit more. And again, I'm not going to, harp on this too hard, because this was really good for, a Nickelodeon movie nowadays. Like, they're really trying with some of this stuff that you could tell, and it's really impressive to see something like this play out. So I'm not going to harp on it too hard, but at the same time, you have an interesting backstory that, could have been the episode in, like, the Netflix type shows where we have a whole backstory episode. We have a whole hour dedicated to just the backstory that's in the middle of the season, so we learn more about the character, and then, as the finale comes along, we're connected to him or her, or, whatever the antagonist is, a little bit more. And they try to make him a little bit sympathetic, but I think we could have used a lot more of that if we just had, 2 more episodes. If this was like a 5-episode series, that's all you really needed, to dedicate just 1 episode to his development and showing the backstory of the Carnival of Doom and stuff. But as it was shown here, it wasn't bad. They try to throw twists and stuff, and try to be like that. That those story points that, like, oh, this is the twist, and they mention it in the show and everything, and it's all right. I mean, like I said, I don't want to harp on it too much. I was a little bit disappointed that they didn't do more with the Gavin character, because in that second episode, I got really creepy vibes with him in that car, and they distorted the music. It seemed like they were going somewhere with that, and they didn't go anywhere with that. So I was a little bit disappointed that they didn't have him be tied into what was going on a little bit more. But they did tie in Rachel, we get the explanation of her story, her original story of the Carnival of Doom. She remembers it that way is because she was that kid the very first time that she was there. And she remembers it subconsciously, and then it happens again, and she remembers it whole, all up in her brain. I don't know what the technical term is for that, but she remembers it fully. And then, we find out at the end that there was a person who died, like a whole family died in the 1944 version of the original Carnival that the Mr. Top Hat ran, and just one girl survived, and that was her great-great-grandmother. Makes sense for something like this. They do a lot of fake-out things at the end, which is weird, where they're acting like they're going to vote her out when it's obvious they're not going to vote her out. There's, like, spooky things in the background when it's just a dog, and it's like, in the last, like, minute of this, did we really need that? I could have wrapped it up a little bit differently. It was cool when Gavin was going to tell his story, because we hadn't heard him tell a story yet, and he says, this is the story of the return of the Ghastly Grinner, and I was like, yeah! I wooed at that part, because of course the Ghastly Grinner is one of, if not the most memorable antagonists or villains or monsters from the original run of Are You Afraid of the Dark, so it was cool just to hear that named. I saw a commercial at the end of this where they said that they're going to be playing all 3 of the episodes back to back to back. That would have been Sunday, I guess, and I was out of town, so I didn't get to even hear about that until today. And they're going to show behind-the-scenes stuff, so that would have been cool to see. If you saw that, let me know if we learned anything new or if it was interesting, what you thought of those behind-the-scenes things in the comments below. I'd like to hear about that. But yeah, this was something that was unexpected. In terms of them just doing it. They took a lot of risks, which I really respect. It looked great. Like I always said since the beginning of this, the production value was there. The acting, for the most part, was there. I think that the Mr. Top Hat character was interesting. That actor really was trying. I just think he was a little bit miscast. I think they could have used someone with a little bit more gravitas. Someone maybe a little bit older, or just, a little bit more effortlessly charismatic. It would have been interesting to see in that role. Not knocking that guy again. I think he did a fine job. Just I think to sell that a little bit more, I think we could have used someone with a little bit more of a presence in that role. But I mean, the kids are a little bit stereotypical in terms of their personality traits, like I mentioned earlier. But for the most part, I enjoyed it. What did you guys think of this 3-part Are You Afraid of the Dark limited series? Do you think that they're going to do more? I certainly hope they make this some kind of yearly tradition or bi-yearly tradition where we get maybe just one episode, maybe we just get one story every year. I think that'd be great. That seems like a tailor-made perfect thing for Nickelodeon to do. And like I said in the last review, you could bring in new filmmakers. You could do anything and really push how scary and intense this can be, and put a warning at the beginning and say this is very intense and scary. And you could go even further with it than you did here, which was pretty far. But I enjoyed it. Second episode I think was the strongest, but this was something that I would love to see more of from Nickelodeon. I'm interested to see how it does in the ratings with Halloween coming up and the replays. I'm sure they're going to get more people to watch this. I know with Hey Arnold that I think I talked about this in the last review, but Hey Arnold did well in terms of like the millennials who watched it, like the people who grew up with it, but the kids who didn't grow up with it didn't watch that Hey Arnold movie that aired on Nickelodeon. So was this received well by kids nowadays? Are kids still interested in being scared like we were with Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps and all like Eerie, Indiana? I remember that show. All of these scary shows that seemed to come out in the late 90s, early 2000s, even mid 90s too, was kind of the thing that was happening. That was a trend back then. Are kids still interested in seeing this kind of thing? I think kids are always interested in being scary or being scared by movies, or watching something maybe you're not supposed to watch and it creeps you out. But this, I'm just interested to see if the reaction was positive on this, and if kids who are the main audience for Nickelodeon actually tuned in to watch this limited series. So they definitely put the promotional work behind it. I have seen it advertised a lot, so kudos to Nickelodeon for really trying to push this. I, as someone who grew up with this, really appreciate it, so I want to thank Nickelodeon for doing this, and I want to see more. So, again, what do you guys think? Leave comments below. I'm going to be back here very soon with a lot of new videos because I've got a lot of stuff planned coming up in this next week. So if you haven't subscribed, make sure you're doing that because there's a lot of stuff coming up here that I think you guys are going to want to see. So, I'll be back here very soon, and I'll talk to you guys then. Bye. Oh, again? I kind of like it.